Hi, everyone, and thank you so much to coming to this webinar about unemployment compensation, specially planned and targeted for folks who are impacted by the closing of Crozer and Prospect and Taylor in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. We are excited to hopefully offer some help to you all. I'm going to start just by introducing my co-presenters and myself. We'll talk a little bit about what we're going to cover, and then we will get right into the details. Hi everyone, my name is Erica Bryant. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Training at Legal Aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania. Legal Aid, where I work, serves the 4 suburban counties. So for anyone who lives or has a legal issue in Delaware County, Bucks County, Chester County, or Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, we provide free civil legal services for low-income and vulnerable clients. I am also joined by Julia Simon Michelle, who is the supervising attorney of the Unemployment Compensation Unit at Philadelphia Legal Assistance. Julia is a true expert on unemployment. In fact, she has won multiple cases before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court on unemployment compensation issues. She has been asked to testify before the Pennsylvania legislature, and she has more than 10 years experience in helping people access unemployment compensation. We're very fortunate to be joined by her. We are also joined by my wonderful colleague, Lee Scarato. He is also a practicing unemployment compensation, and he is based right here in Chester, serving clients in Delaware County needing help with unemployment. So he has all of the local expertise, all of the grassroots knowledge about what is going on in Chester and with the Crozer closure. So he will bring tremendous experience as well, and we're very grateful to have him also. Before I turn it over to them, I do want to flag that we are recording this. We will be posting it online so people can use it as a resource going forward, but that means it's important that I take note of the fact that everything we're covering is going to be accurate and up-to-date law as of today, May 1st, 2025, right? If this lives on YouTube for years to come, laws do change. We're also not going to be addressing anyone's specific legal issue or concern, right? We're not taking on cases in this moment. We're giving general information. So with that disclaimer, I think I'm going to turn it over to Julia, who's going to go through the first several slides with everyone.
Great. Thank you, Erica, and thank you for that introduction. Also, just to note that we will be taking questions. We have a lot of content to get through, but we're going to try to get through it in enough time to leave an opportunity to address questions. If you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. We will be monitoring that and try to answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. So obviously, everyone here has been put in a really difficult situation at a time when you may have not been prepared for losing a job, losing income in such a sudden manner. That is exactly what the unemployment system is here for. Unemployment compensation is a social safety net. It's a social insurance program that's intended to provide income replacement for individuals who have lost their job through no fault of their own. Many people know that employers pay into the Unemployment Compensation Fund, but in Pennsylvania, employees do too. You've seen a line item for unemployment come out of your paycheck for years. That's one of the reasons why it's important to remember that you are going to be filing for benefits in Pennsylvania with the Pennsylvania unemployment system, regardless of where you live, because you file for unemployment based on where you worked and not where you live. So regardless of where you're calling in or zooming in from right now, if you physically worked in Pennsylvania, this is the right state to be filing for unemployment benefits. So we are past now any extensions or extra benefits that occurred during the pandemic. So we are back to regular state unemployment benefits, which are 26 weeks of benefits. The weekly benefit can range from $68 per week to $605 per week. Your claim, once you open it, lasts for an entire year, so you have an entire year to claim those benefits. Benefits are paid every week. They can be paid either through direct deposit or by a debit card. And when unemployment communicates with you, it can be in various types of ways, but primarily you're going to be receiving mail, emails, or messages in an online portal, and you will have an opportunity to choose your contact and communication preference with unemployment. So the most important thing we can tell you right now is that once you stop working, you should file for unemployment. A lot of folks think, oh, well, I'm going to find another job very quickly, or I have savings I can rely on for a little while. Go ahead and just file your application right away, because you can only get paid as of the dates that you file the initial application. So if you wait and then decide and then realize, oh man, I did want to file, you can't collect any of those back benefits, right? You'll only be able to collect benefits going forward. So, for the time first mortgage hits, for first rent hits, first bills hit, file the application right away. There are two main ways of filing that application. One is online through, again, an online portal for unemployment, and the other is calling the Department of Labor and Industry statewide unemployment hotline. Now, people, I think, have this perception from, again, the years of the pandemic and some issues prior to the pandemic that you can't get through to the phone, get through to unemployment on the phone. And while that certainly was the case for an extended period of time, the phone lines have much improved, especially if you call between Wednesday and Friday. Calling at the beginning of the week is generally going to be the busiest time on the lines. So we recommend calling towards the end of the week, and somebody can take your application over the phone. So it's important to know that in order to actually get paid benefits, you need to file weekly claims. We see a lot of folks who file initial application and then contact us 2 months later trying to figure out why they haven't received any money. It's because they never filed a weekly claim. So you're required to file a weekly claim that answers a series of questions showing them that you're still unemployed, still meeting requirements, and then that is what causes you to get paid. Most people file their weekly claims on Sundays, but you can file any day of the week. And generally, you're going to see that money hit your account once you've been found eligible and benefits have started, around 2 to 3 days later. You can file those weekly claims, again, online on the portal. There's also an automated telephone system that you can file for. You'll need a 4-digit PIN number for that. So you'll want to request that if you file by telephone initially, so that they know to send that to you. There's also a Spanish version of both the online portal and the telephone system. So for any individuals who may require that, they can access it that way. There is also, at any time somebody needs to contact unemployment, they can ask for an interpreter. And unemployment has access to interpreters for all languages and is required to provide one to you if you ask for one on the phone. So if you receive documents that you can't understand because of language barriers, or you feel more comfortable engaging with unemployment in a different language, just ask whenever you speak with them. One thing to keep in mind when you are filing for benefits is that if you go more than 2 weeks without filing for benefits, your claim will go inactive because there's kind of an assumption by the system that you must be reemployed. So if you miss multiple weeks, you can go into the system and do a reopen, which will feel a lot like your initial application again, but really it's just reopening the claim, and then you'll be able to file going forward. To qualify for unemployment, there are kind of 3 basic aspects of eligibility. First is financial eligibility, second is separation eligibility, and third is whether you are able and available for work. Financial eligibility is the kind of gateway. It is the one that looks at how much you earned and when you earned it over a specific period of time. They are looking to see how many credit weeks you have, which is weeks that you worked in which you earned $116 a week. And all of this together will determine not only whether you're eligible, but how much you're going to be paid each week. The main thing I think for folks in this webinar is that if you've been employed for at least a year by Crozer, you should be financially eligible for benefits. If you've been employed for less than that, the question is just going to be, were you working before then? And was that employer part of the unemployment system such that they are reporting your wages to unemployment? It'll be important when you get your notice of monetary determination, which if you apply online will show up immediately after you finish your application, to see if all of your employers and all of your wages are correctly listed on there. If they are not, right, then you can appeal that. Every once in a while, there are issues. If you've worked for the federal government, those might not show up originally. If you worked in a different state for some period of time, those might not show up originally. They will be able to gather that and add them, but you will need to, in essence, let them know by appealing. If you look at that notice and all of your wages are on there, but they are telling you you are not eligible, the thing to do is to file a new claim again at the beginning of the next quarter, because unemployment works on a quarter system and the period of time where they are looking at wages changes based on the quarter. So the next quarter switch happens on July 6th, and they will be looking at more recent wages as of then. So if you'd only rejoin the workforce or join the workforce somewhat recently, and you don't have enough wages yet in the system, definitely reapply again after July 6th. Separation eligibility is, I think, what most people think of when they think of qualifying for unemployment, and that has to do with what happened to your job. Now, there are a variety of ways you can qualify for benefits, and the online application or by telephone will ask you, why are you no longer working? Why did you separate from your employer? The situation for folks who are part of the layoff is very straightforward. You choose layoff as the reason for separation, and that creates a very straightforward path to benefits. There's not really any sort of investigation that has to happen there. Unemployment will, of course, reach out to Crozer and ask them to confirm that this is what's happening, given, again, that I believe the Department of Labor and Industry's rapid response team is also going to be on site. They're very familiar with what is happening at your workplace, and it should, again, hopefully move pretty smoothly. And so there shouldn't be kind of any arguments about whether or not anyone qualifies based on what happened to your job. And I'm going to turn it over to Lee to talk about able and available.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you everyone for joining. So able and available is a weekly determination, and that's really that's an important thing to remember. So it's not just were you able and available when you applied, and again, each of these words means something. Able means that you were physically able to do some kind of work, and if sedentary work, light work, remote work, all of those count as some type of work. And then available is, are you physically available to do to work? And like I said, it's a weekly determination when you make your weekly application. And so that's important to realize that. So for example, if you had a planned medical procedure that will keep you out of the workforce for that week because you're recovering, then one should not apply or make that application as you're able and available for that week. You're not going to lose that week from, you still have your full eligibility, and that's important to remember. It's just that for that 1 week, if you're out of the country or physically laid up for some reason, that is, you are not able and available that week. It doesn't preclude receiving benefits before or after that period. And we can go to the next slide.
In order to maintain eligibility for unemployment, you have to do a series of requirements on a week-by-week basis. The main one is that you need to be actively searching for work. And generally, that's a pretty low bar for most people in this situation who are looking to get reemployed. There is a work search requirement that asks you to apply for 2 jobs and participate in a job search activity. That's a little bit flexible here and there. As long as you are kind of actively, contacting people, whether you're going to job fairs, that counts. Whether you're, registering with online services, posting resumes places, you just in general have to kind of do 3 of those activities. Applying for jobs and job search activity each week. You don't have to report the specific activities or job searches that you're doing to unemployment, but you should keep a record because unemployment does maintain the right to audit claims later on about their job searches. What you have to do when you file your weekly claim is they will ask you, did you perform your weekly work search? And so if you've done that, you can simply say yes. One place you can do your job search or go to for resources are Pennsylvania CareerLink offices. A separate requirement for unemployment is that you register with CareerLink. This is sometimes confusing and frustrating for folks because you will get to the end of an online application for unemployment and they will say, you must go to this separate website and enter a lot of the same information again to register for CareerLink. And that uses a separate login called a Keystone ID. It will be very important if you are working with these online systems to write down your username and password for unemployment somewhere, and to also write down your username and password for Keystone ID, which is how you do registration and anything with CareerLink. You do have to register online. If you struggle with that, you can go in person to Pennsylvania CareerLink offices and they will help you register. They will also help you with weekly work searches, connecting you with reemployment services, job training, and things like that. You must register within 30 days of your initial applications. They give you a little bit of a runway, but if you register after 30 days, your benefits will be cut. Sorry, if you have not registered by 30 days, your benefits will be cut off. If you get notice that you have not registered and therefore your benefits have been cut off, all you have to do is register. Once you register, they will turn your benefits back on. But you can avoid all of that by making sure that after you file your initial application, you just go ahead and register with CareerLink. So another requirement for your weekly claims is that you have to report any work that you did during the week. You must report what you earned from doing that work. It's important to note that you must report work and wages when you earned them, not when you were paid, right? So you may work for a week but not get paid for another 2 weeks, but you have to report the income, the wages at the end of the week that you actually worked. You also need to report your gross income, which is your pre-tax income when you are filing for benefits. If you earn more than 30% of your weekly benefit rate in any given week from part-time work, they will just do an offset of those benefits. In unemployment in Pennsylvania, when we say you qualify for 26 weeks, you really qualify for 26 weeks times your weekly benefit rate, and that is the pot of money in your account. So if you're working part-time and still collecting some benefits, you could collect for more than 26 weeks. It's the same amount of money. It just lasts longer because you're collecting less each week than if you were not doing any part-time work. It's really important to report all of these earnings, regardless of what state you earn them in. If you worked in Delaware, if you work in New York, if you work in Maryland, you still have to report it to Pennsylvania. If you work for a different employer, right, than the one obviously you're separating from now, you still have to report it. Unemployment gets these wage records at a later point, and if you do not report, they will go back, investigate, and issue overpayments. So this is the one area where it's really important to be on top of the information that you are giving to unemployment. And I believe I'm going to hand it over now to Lee again.
Yes, and as it says, if you are not a citizen, but if you're legally authorized to work in the United States, you are still eligible to collect unemployment benefits. It is based on your work authorization, and one of the issues I'd like to flag is the timing. If your recent work authorization, we go back to that sort of base year credit weeks analysis. So you have to have worked 18 weeks within the base year, which looks 4 quarters backwards, and have a minimum earnings under that work authorization of $116, but otherwise fully eligible, the same as any other worker. Next slide. Uh, so what happens in the unfortunate event that a person is denied benefits? The appeal process is pretty regular. It's really where most of us in the community, the working in unemployment work with the system is in the appeals. Your first claim is reviewed by a local unemployment compensation service center, and they have the opportunity at the service center to deny the claim for reasons of eligibility or income, or not, failing to file for CareerLink or one of the job search features in the application. And then it's a matter of the claimant, ourselves here, appealing. You can appeal by your portal. That is the easiest. Or you could appeal by email, mail, or fax. The portal is, like I said, what we recommend. It is the easiest. And when you do appeal, it's very important. You can to click the appeal, and the reason for the appeal is just a simple "I disagree with a determination," and that makes your appeal valid and gets into the system for filing the appeal. It's important also you'll get if a person's denied, they'll get a disqualifying determination. Even with that determination, continue filing claims, because if when you appeal to the next levels up, the service center's determination that a person is disqualified gets overturned, they're only going to get back pay for the claim for the weeks that the person files claims. So in that case, even if you're denied or disqualified, keep filing the claims. Next slide. So when a person gets a notice that they've been disqualified or they're denied benefits, there's a date on there that says you have to appeal must be filed by this date. I think 10 days after the publishing of the notice.
Sorry, just
Sorry.
to stop you have 21 days.
21 days. Thank you.
From
Sorry.
the notice of determination, and it will say the deadline on the notice.
Yeah, and that deadline is there in bold on the notice. It tells you when. You have the opportunity to make a late appeal. Generally, late appeals have to have a technical reason. So some failure of technology or some failure to receive the notice, but you can make a late appeal, and then you still have the opportunity to get back pay with a late appeal if you can prove the reason that a valid reason for making a late appeal. Next slide. So what happens next is that there's levels of review and for the appeals claim. So your initial application, the service center determines eligibility, and that's the basic passing. That's what we hope for most people. The claim goes through right away. If there's a denial, the first appeal level is at an unemployment compensation referee. Generally, these hearings are tied to the employer's location. So, Crozer being in Delaware County, I imagine that the Springfield referee office in Springfield, Pennsylvania, would handle most any appeals out of it. That's the first local step. The appeals referees are essentially administrative law judges. They give a hearing. And you have an opportunity to present evidence in defense of your claim. If that is unsuccessful, the next level up is the Unemployment Compensation Board of Review. That is in the Bureau of Labor and Industry in Harrisburg. That won't really be a hearing as much as an appeal brief to the board, where they consider the evidence that was presented in the referee hearing. And the law, and really that's it. And then if the next level up, if necessary, would be an appeal to the Commonwealth Court. Next slide. The referee hearings, the same as the disqualifying determination. You'll get published on the portal. You'll get it mailed hard copy, probably in an email as well. It'll give all of the information a person needs for the hearing, and there's some things to pay attention to the hearing notice. It'll say the reason that you're having a hearing, whether it's some contested decision by an employer or some paperwork issue where I's not dotted, T's not crossed, that requires straightening out in front of a referee. And so they'll tell the claimant what they need, when to be there, where to go, when to be there, and what to bring. Next. Most hearings these days are in person. You sit in a room with a referee, and if it's a contested claim, the employer sits on one side and the claimant on the other. In cases where it's just an issue of paperwork or some mechanical issue in the unemployment claim, it'll just be the claimant and the referee going through the documents and proving the claimant's case. As it says, 30 minutes that you're advised to get to the referee office 30 minutes ahead of time. Telephone hearings still do happen. This is the big thing for a telephone hearing. The referee, you make sure that they have a good contact number for you. The referee office calls you on for the dial in for your hearing, and then sets up then through their call bridge. But whereas you can bring documents with you to an in-person hearing, you are limited in what you can present to the telephone hearing. So you need to have any evidence that you would present in your case. Emailed is probably the most effective, because you will get a receipt from the unemployment compensation referee office. You email them and they'll say, I've received it, no less than 5 days before the hearing. And it says that in bold letters on the notice as well. So it's important. Preparing for the hearing is extremely important, because it's the opportunity to make your case. And the referee, in terms of the ease of getting a claim process, the service center is the easiest and the best, and then the referee is the second easiest, and every level up from there is just a layer of complication. Next. And that's it for me.
So coming back to what I said at the beginning, which is that the best way to access information about your claim and to take action on your claim is by creating an unemployment compensation account and getting access to their online portal. You can do that at the website there. You can also find that website through unemployment's website. In order to log on, you will have to, again, make a username and password. You will also need to use multi-factor authentication when you get in. So make sure that you sign up with an email address that you will maintain access to and a phone number that you plan to maintain access to. In order to use the online system, you will also need to do identity verification through a third party called ID.me. If you've accessed other government benefits or dealt with issues with the IRS or Social Security Administration, you may have already done this with ID.me, in which case you'll need to just go in, get access to your account there, and go in and be able to confirm that you've already verified your identity. If you have issues with any of this, you should contact unemployment, and they can help you figure out ways to get information and get into the system if you're struggling with identity authentication. What can you do in the portal? As I said, you can file your weekly claims. You can upload any documents that you need unemployment to see. You can fill out any questionnaires or fact-finding they send you. You can see notices and communication in your message center. You can see your payment history. It will show you your payment dates, how much, what sort of taxes were taken out. It's a good reminder that unemployment benefits are federally taxed. They account for federal income tax, not for state income tax. So you can choose at the beginning to withhold taxes. It comes out as 10% from each week. There's also a small benefit reduction that applies to everyone that has to do with the solvency of the fund and legislation that was passed earlier in the 2010s. So If you are logged into your online portal, you'll be able to see all of that so that you understand what the final number is you're being paid and why. You'll also be able to see kind of what the status of your claim is or if there's any issues. So I mentioned earlier, able to set your communication preference. There should only be two options now. One is internal message with email notification, and the other is postal mail. If you are someone who is never going to be checking online and you do not want to interact with the online system after doing your initial application, choose postal mail. But if you would like to get email notifications that will say, there's a notice in your portal and give you a link to sign in, then you should use internal message with email notification. Because addresses change more often than emails these days, we generally recommend doing that because unemployment may need to contact you in a year or 2 years or 3 years after your claim for some reason. And the best way to make sure they can always contact you is to choose this communication preference. We also want to recommend a self-help website that Philadelphia Legal Assistance has created and runs. It's called www.uchelp.org. This is a great resource. We have an entire page and section about the initial application, tips you need to know, how to navigate it, how to get through the rest of the system. We have FAQs. There are images on there to show you and graphics about how this is going to work. So really recommend that to you and to friends and family who might be in a similar situation. So if you need individualized help in whether it's applying for benefits, understanding the weekly claims, understanding another issue that has come up with your account, the first thing you should do is try to contact the Department of Labor and Industry. As we said, their statewide hotline is accessible now. Again, recommend that you call that Wednesday through Thursday. You can also email the department at uchelp@pa.gov. I recommend going to our page on UC Help if you're going to do any of this, because we give you the kind of instructions about what information you need to include in an email if you're going to contact the agency. There's also a live chat that is actually quite helpful and is with a real human for a variety of issues, especially if you can't get into your account for some reason, you need help getting into your account. There are also now unemployment merit staff, so folks who can actually work on claims and answer claim questions in person at Pennsylvania CareerLink offices, often 2 days a week. You can make an appointment to meet with those folks. They can help you with initial application. They can answer questions about your claim, and they also have access to interpreter services. There's a separate phone line to call to make appointments with those individuals. That phone line, nobody on that phone line can answer any questions about a claim. Only call that phone line to make appointments. Appointments sometimes can get backed up. So if you need an appointment in person to file your initial application and it turns out you can't get one for 3 weeks, make sure you tell the staff member when you get there that you've been waiting 3 weeks for this appointment and you need them to backdate your claim to when you first lost work, because if you had been able to get an appointment right away, you would have filed much earlier. CareerLink offices can also help with obviously work registration and work search. If you need more individualized assistance or you want non-governmental assistance, you should always consider contacting legal aid. Last for most of you is going to be the organization that you're going to contact. We'll have their information at the end. If you live in Philadelphia County, you could be eligible for PLA services. So feel free to reach out to us. But both of us at this point generally focus on claims that have been denied and where you are seeking appeals. If you have other claim kind of troubleshooting questions or you're struggling with some aspect of the system, we always recommend contacting your local legislators. They have direct access to the unemployment office and can send information about your claim and get information back. And I've trained the staff in a lot of these offices. They're pretty good with this system and always want to help. So if you go to the Find Help link on UC Help, we also have information about how to find the correct legal aid organization for you and how to find your local legislators. So we wanted to flag that We know we just went through a lot of information, and that inevitably people encounter other issues, right? Unfortunately, administrative systems like this are never totally straightforward. Um, so we expect that folks may have some follow-up questions, especially about issues like wage reporting or meeting those work search requirements, or what to do when you get a job offer. So we're going to have a second webinar so that when you're at the point when you're thinking about all those things, we can kind of review them with you fresh and folks can ask more questions. That is going to be on Thursday, June 5th at the same time. And folks are going to drop the link to register for that webinar in the chat. But it'll also, of course, be advertised, across social media, and probably again publicly through the public media to the extent we can. But better to just register now when you see the link in front of you. And if you don't need to attend, you don't need to attend, but you better have it as a backup, just in case you need it. So as we mentioned, resources, uchelp.org. And then also, this is the intake information for legal aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania. You can find Philadelphia Legal Assistance's intake information if you're a Philly resident at philalegal.org. So I'm going to leave this up for a moment before I take it down, but I'm going to try and go through and answer questions as best I can. Erica, keep track for me. If you see that I miss one that I haven't already answered, let me know. I'm not going to be able to answer, again, individualized questions. I'm not giving individualized legal advice. I'm trying to get through ones that I think are most broadly applicable to the folks who are on this webinar. The first is one that we've heard a few different times already about this closure, which is, what if I already have a paid or planned vacation? So generally, if you are on a vacation, you are not able and available for work during that time. And so what we recommend is, if you have a vacation that's going to be starting and is going to right after the layoff, or starting now and is going to finish after the layoff time, wait till you get back to file. The easiest way, the kind of most seamless way of dealing with this, is to file when you get back from the vacation. If you've worked for multiple employers, that doesn't affect your ability to file for unemployment. If you are still part-time employed by a second employer, just make sure that when you file your weekly claims, you report the wages that you earned from that part-time employer. If at some point you stop working for that part-time employer, you will have to report that to unemployment as a new separation, and they will have to evaluate what happened with that job. Somebody asked about what if they've had surgery and are on FMLA. Being able and available physically doesn't mean that you have to be able to do all work. So if you've just had surgery, you probably haven't yet been cleared by your doctor to do any work. When you have been cleared to do some type of work, it could be light duty, sedentary, remote. As long as you can do some type of work, you're physically able to do some type of work, then you should be eligible. Again, the most seamless situation right now is probably to wait to file until you're at that point, right? Rather than filing now, having to tell them you're not able and available, and then having to change that later. So I'd recommend for anyone who thinks they're currently not able and available to wait and file when you do become able and available, again, to have the most streamlined process. Somebody asked about what if you already have a new job, but it doesn't start yet? You're still eligible during that time. Like, if you are not working and again, you lost your job through no fault of your own, file for benefits. Even if you have a start date for a new job, though, you do have to do the work search activities. I know it feels a bit absurd, but unfortunately, that's just how the law is written right now. So you still need to be doing job search activities, but obviously, you already have a job and you're already set.
Julia, the next question was asked at the time that you were going over records of the job search activities. So those are the records that are being referred to.
Gotcha. They believe it's safe to keep the records for 3 years. And again, if you do it through CareerLink, that's kept in the system, right? So like, you can always go and access that. And yes, applying through online services like Indeed or ZipRecruiter and things like that, doing things on LinkedIn, all of that counts just as much as the kind of traditional like paper application, or I filled out a form online.
The next
So,
question I'm also going to give some backstory to, because I
yes.
know many people had a 4-month resignation requirement. So folks might still have been employed, having given notice they were planning on resigning, and then they were sort of forced out early, if that makes
Sorry,
sense.
can you explain that? A 4-month
So it was a
I'm not sure.
contractual requirement for some
Yeah.
Crozer employees that
So
they
that
had
they
to,
had to give 4 months notice.
yes.
Okay. So, um, there's two, that's slightly different from, I think, what was said here in this question. So if you resigned, in that situation, if you were planning to resign, but you've been laid off before then, I think you're eligible just based on the layoff. Like the resignation doesn't come into play because even you can't resign from a job you're already laid off from, right? So you would just report layoff. If you got a layoff date, let's say of May 15th, but you resign on May 1st, then they're going to have to evaluate the resignation on May 1st. So they're going to look at, whether you voluntarily quit and whether you had good cause to voluntarily quit. If they find that you do, then you're great. But even if they find that you don't, it's important to make sure that unemployment understands that as of May 15th, you would have been laid off. So really, they would only disqualify you for those first 2 weeks, right? And then as of the 15th, you should be eligible again because you would have been laid off. So to keep in mind, it's a little bit more complicated. It's a good thing to make sure that you explain that you kind of send information in just to make sure they kind of have all the information that is necessary. Someone asked about employment verification. You don't have to do any employment verification. Everything happens from unemployment on the back end. So I generally recommend that anything in your work email that applies to you personally and is related to your job, to send that to a personal account, as long as that's not violating any work rules. But you don't have to do any verification. Unemployment sends something to your former employer, they respond back. There's a whole separate system for that. You don't have to do anything. Let's see. Okay. I believe the next one is the PTO question. So we don't know whether we are actually going to get paid PTO. Okay, 1 second. So the way that PTO works is, so actually maybe Erica, you can clarify if you know. It was the idea that they were going to get paid out PTO for a period of time before the layoff date, or is it about PTO after the layoff?
So my reading is that if someone says they had previously requested time off, such that if it was honored, they would be paid longer, so they aren't sure whether or not they will actually get an additional paycheck or not.
Got it. Okay. So any PTO that you're paid out after you have been let go, you don't have to report that PTO, right? If you are still employed, technically by Crozer and receiving PTO, you do have to report it, right? And if you have any questions about the specifics of the situation, I think it makes sense for folks to contact, again, unemployment. There also, I believe, will be rapid response folks from DLI on site. So some of these particular questions might be good for them. The important thing is, if you ever get paid after the fact and didn't realize it and aren't sure if you need to report it, call them. Better to be forthright with them about the fact that you received money, make it clear they have a record that you talked to them, so that nobody ever comes back and accuses you of kind of hiding the ball with whatever income you received. So I believe the next one was about pensions. So you will be asked during your initial application to report different forms of retirement income that could potentially impact benefits. There is a pension offset. It doesn't actually apply to a lot of people, but they will ask you. So you would enter that information on the initial application, but you would not report like whatever you're taking from a pension on your weekly claims. That's not considered earned income in that week. So it's just, you need to report it on the initial application. Somebody did ask about registering for work. If they don't live in Pennsylvania, the rule is that you have to register for work in the state that you live. So if you live outside of Pennsylvania, you would register with whatever the job services are in your state. So moving a little bit. Graduating resident who graduated early due to the closure, but whose job doesn't start for another month. I'm not sure I can answer the specifics of that situation without more information that's a little bit individualized. So again, if you have questions about that, would contact unemployment. The key is, are you out of work due to the closure, right? If you're out of work because of some other planned situation, it might be different. So that's something you're going to want to look into. Let's see. Uploading No, you don't need to upload documents that show your job search, but you can, right? If you want to keep a record of them there, you can. And Erica, you got that one. Great. No, so workers' comp, as long as you're cleared, you're able to do some sort of work. Workers' comp shouldn't impact you. And in fact, they don't look at your income for the last 12 weeks when they're evaluating your eligibility, so that won't even show up yet. The key is, are you able and available for work? Yes, so if you earn if you get another part-time job, you can continue to file for benefits while reporting that income. It all depends on how much you're making at that part-time job. Remember that you only make at most $605 a week for unemployment. So depending on how much you earn at that new job, it may mean that you don't get any partial benefits, but it makes sense to, in the first few weeks, right, report that income, see if you're eligible for any partials. If you're not, you can stop filing. If something ever happens to that job, you can reopen your application and continue filing again. Let's see. Okay. Social Security. No, you do not have to report Social Security to unemployment. Yes, if you have a per diem job elsewhere, it's the same thing. Any other type of work, you just have to report it to unemployment when you file. I think I've answered this question in a few different ways now, so I'm going to keep going. Is there a limit on how much you can earn in your part-time job? It depends on your weekly benefit rate. If you earn more than 130% of your weekly benefit rate, then you most likely won't be eligible for any benefits. And yes, if you live in New Jersey, you sign up for the equivalent job services in New Jersey. You don't have to sign up for Pennsylvania CareerLink based. So part-time is it's a little iffy. If you are working less than whatever was considered full-time at Crozer, right, or whatever was considered full-time at the job you lost, then that's considered part-time for purposes of unemployment. Sometimes they don't understand that. If they see you're working 40 hours a week, they might disqualify you because they say, hey, that's full-time. But you'll need to explain to them that prior to starting this job, you were working 60 hours a week. So 40 hours a week is not part-time for you. But if you're working 40 hours a week, generally you're going to be earning too much to qualify for unemployment. Again, report the income, see what happens. Let's see. Okay, I worked 100% remote in New York State. Okay, if you worked remotely in New York State and Pennsylvania unemployment was not coming out of your taxes, then you probably do need to apply in New York. That is where you were physically located and where you were performing the work with the approval of your employer. So they were probably reporting your wages to New York and not to Pennsylvania. If you're someone in that situation, if you were in another state, and for some reason when you apply in that state, your wages are not showing up, right? You should contact them and ask them, and tell them what's going on, and they might be able to switch you over. They can kind of put your information on this interstate exchange, and then you can go to Pennsylvania, who can hopefully create a claim for you if it turns out you should have been here. But generally speaking, if you were physically located somewhere else and your employer was paying taxes for that state, then you apply in that state. Let's see. So maximum amount of time. There's not a maximum amount of time that you can wait to file. The issue becomes two things. One, you can't get paid for the weeks that you don't file for. So if you wait, that's just waiting longer to get paid on the program. If you wait like a year or years, at some point, your wages will no longer show up in the system, right? Like 6 months from now, you'll still be able to see the wages in the system. That should be fine, but just something to take into consideration. Can you claim hours you were scheduled to work, but work called off because of the staffing scale down? I don't, you mean that you're still employed, but you had a reduction in work, right? I think is what we're saying. So like, I'm still employed. I was expecting to work 40 hours this week, but I only worked 20 hours. You can file a claim now in that situation and choose layoff for that and explain the reduction of work. Again, they're going to have to figure out monetarily whether you would be eligible for anything, but you can do that. And then you need to report the date at which it becomes a full layoff, because the system will make you kind of redo part of the application once you stop reporting any income. So you can do that. It's probably cleaner to wait until, at this point, given the how close the actual layoff date is, to wait for that. But if you want to, you should be able to file now, and you might be able to get paid for some of that. Let's see. For the person who asked about Delaware, I think look at your pay stubs, see what state taxes they are paying for you. You can register. I'll just say, like, you can register for job services wherever you want. Like, you can register for, you don't have to do job searches in another state. You can do Pennsylvania job searches, just that you're cleared of the requirement if you're registered in the state that you live. But you can still register for Pennsylvania Career Link. There's nothing that stops you from doing that if you live in a different state. Okay. Just making sure. Again, yes, you can still collect Social Security while you're on unemployment. Okay, now we have people posting questions like every couple of seconds, and so it's moving a little bit. So give me a second to see if I can follow along. Okay. Okay, so if you've had issues with a fraudulent claim under your name, that's hopefully been cleared from the system now. But if you try to apply and they tell you you already have an account and you're like, no, I don't, call unemployment, report that, let them know. They should be able to fix it. If you still have issues with that, that's something to go to legal aid or your local legislative office about.
Julia,
Yeah.
on the issue of previous fraudulent claim, if you haven't done it yet, it's also important, if you think that this might be an issue, to report that previous fraudulent claim to the Auditor General, and even just getting a regular police report, as I said, beginning the documentation that you need to support your legitimate claim is important.
Thanks, Lee. I think somebody asked about someone with some type of disability while on PT. Again, to be eligible for unemployment, you have to be able to do some type of work, even if it's not your full duty. If it's light duty or something like that, then you're fine. Otherwise, if you're kind of held out from work entirely right now, wait until you're released from your doctor to file for benefits. Let's see. Okay. I think there's a question about the active nursing license. Again, the key is apply for work in whatever state that you want to work in and where you're licensed to work. But in terms of registering for work, you're only required to do that in Delaware. But again, it is never a problem to over-register in as many places as possible. So if you are starting some other sort of job and you're not always going to be working the same amount of hours, if you work full time this week and then next week they give you less time, you just report the actual number of hours each week. And unemployment, again, will adjust your benefits. Per diem work can sometimes be a little difficult in the system because unemployment, if you report work one week and then not work the other week, they're going to be like, why didn't you work? And you're going to be like, because this is a part-time per diem job. But it's going to kind of keep coming up in the system. So you just have to kind of stay on top of how you report that. Let's see. There's nothing to again, pension and unemployment, not related, except for that you need to report any pensions that you're taking when you file your initial application for benefits. No, you cannot file in advance. Erica got that right. You have to wait until you actually lose work to file. And then, okay, copy the presentation online. Great. You can get a dependent allowance when you file for unemployment. It's on the smaller side. They're going to ask you to enter the social security numbers of your children so that they can verify that. It's only for children. It's not for any other, it's not for older dependents. So if there are some offsets that can happen, if you have an order from the court for child support, there will be an offset for that. They will give you notice of that in your portal. I think we're almost there.
Yeah, so since I think we've gotten through the questions in our remaining 2 minutes, I'm going to highlight again that I anticipate some of y'all are going to be losing access to the Crozer email addresses that you may have used to register for this. So keep that in mind. Make sure you save the link to the registration for the next session, and then make sure that you register for that with a new email that you will still have access to at that point. If everyone wants to take a moment and make sure you copy that link right now before you hop off, I strongly recommend it. Also, clearly there's a lot of interest about gaining access to this presentation going forward, which is excellent. I just want to set everyone's expectations. It's going to be a very large file. It's probably going to take us a couple of days to get it uploaded. So don't panic. If you don't get an email until Monday or so, that's about when we're expecting that you will have it, but we'll include the link to the video as well as a PDF of these PowerPoint slides.
And pretty much all the information that I just shared is on uchealth.org. So in the meantime, if you want to look for resources, go there. I do want to say that, again, given that this is a layoff situation, assuming there are no other issues that pop up on your claim, benefits generally should be paid within 3 weeks of the initial application. They've been moving these fairly quickly. So again, important to get the application in as soon as possible once you've actually been laid off by your employer.
I also want to highlight that there is going to be an event at Super Oak Park for folks who've been disconnected with work because of Crozer's closure. That's May 13th from 10 to 2. And Legal Aid is going to be there, including Lee. So you will see us again. And if you have questions, that's another way that you will be able to make contact with us.
And again, if you are not able to receive any more communications on the email address you used to sign up for this, if you missed the link, just keep your eye on the social media for Legal Aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania. You should follow them on all social media platforms to make sure that you get all the information that is necessary about this, about other forms of benefits that they might be able to help you with. If you're in Philadelphia County, please go ahead and follow Philadelphia Legal Assistance on social media. But we'll make sure that we continue to post whether it's information about this recording, the next webinar, any other resources that come out. That's the best way to keep track of things right now.
Excellent. Well, I think we've pretty much gotten through the questions, which was amazing because there were a lot of them. I want to say thank you so much to Lee and Julia. We could not have done this without both of you. I'm extremely grateful. Coming from a household that is directly impacted by the Crozer closure, I'm very grateful for your partnership. I also want to thank the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network for sponsoring this event. Believe it or not, our Zoom is not powerful enough, so we needed to call in the statewide agency to make sure that we could meet the demand. So thank you so much to everyone at Plan and Kelly especially for giving up your evenings to help make sure we can get the word out.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck, and get back in touch if you need us.
Take care, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Good luck, everyone.